$50? Sir, are you serious? The auctioneer's voice carried across the room. People turned. A few laughed. The man in the back row didn't move. He sat with his hands folded on top of a worn leather notebook, looking straight ahead. The auctioneer shook his head, smiling, and gestured to the front row where three men in dark suits sat with matching briefcases. We have a serious opening bid of $8 million from Crestline Capital. Do I hear $1? $85 million? The man in the back said nothing. He waited. His name was Leonard Moss. He was 68 years old. He had spent 44 years buying land in Benton County, Missouri, one small parcel at a time. He started with nothing, no inheritance, no family money, no head start. In 1982, at 24 years old, he bought his first 12 acres for $3,400 saved from 3 years of working other men's farms. He paid cash. He worked that land for 2 years, saved every dollar, and bought the adjacent 18 acres in 1984. Then another 22 acres in 1987. Then 40 acres in 1991. He never borrowed. He never leveraged. He bought only what he could pay for outright, and he only bought land that touched land he already owned. By 2026, Leonard Moss owned 847 continuous acres in 3 counties, assembled piece by piece over 4 decades. Every transaction recorded in the notebook he carried, every offer, every counteroffer, every closing date, written in his own hand. There was one piece he didn't own, 160 acres directly in the center of his holdings. It had belonged to a man named Raymond Kraft, who had died in 2019 with no heirs and no will. The property went into probate, then into state receivership, then into a public auction scheduled for April 2026. Leonard had known that land was coming to auction for 7 years. He had been ready for 7 years. But so had Crestline Capital. Crestline Capital Management was a land acquisition firm based in St. Louis. They specialized in distressed rural properties, estate liquidations, and tax foreclosure portfolios. In 2025, they acquired 4,200 acres across Missouri in 19 separate transactions. They moved fast. They bid high. They closed clean. The firm employed 11 people. Their representative at the auction was a man named Michael Torrance. He was 36 years old. He had a degree in finance from Washington University. He wore a gray suit and sat in the front row with 2 associates beside him. They had flown in that morning. They had reviewed the property file for 90 minutes. The land was worth $2.1 million based on comparable sales. They had authorization to bid up to $2.4 million. Michael was confident. He had won 14 of the last 16 auctions he attended. The auctioneer called for bids. Michael opened at $1.8 million, standard aggressive opening to establish dominance. No one countered. The auctioneer called twice more. Then the voice from the back. $50. Michael turned in his seat. He looked at Leonard Moss for the first time. Older man, work boots, flannel shirt, sitting alone. Michael smiled and turned back to the auctioneer. $1.85 million. Leonard said, $100. The room went quiet. The auctioneer frowned. Sir, I don't think you understand the process here. The current bid is $1.85 million. You can't. I can bid any legal increment I want, Leonard said. That's the law. I'm bidding $100. The auctioneer hesitated. He looked to the county clerk seated at the side table. The clerk nodded. It was technically correct. Leonard could bid any amount above the previous bid. The auctioneer sighed. All right, we have $100 from the gentleman in the back. Do I hear? $2 million, Michael said flatly. Leonard said, $150. Michael turned fully around in his chair. He stared at Leonard. Leonard met his eyes and said nothing. Michael turned back. $2.1 million. Leonard said, $200. Michael's associate leaned over and whispered something. Michael ignored him. He raised his hand. $2.2 million. Leonard said, $250. The auctioneer was visibly uncomfortable now. This wasn't how these things went, but Leonard was right. There was no rule against it. He called the bid. Michael stood up. He walked halfway down the aisle and stopped, looking directly at Leonard. You're wasting everyone's time. You can't win this. We'll go as high as it takes. Leonard opened the notebook on his lap. He turned to a page near the middle and ran his finger down a column of handwritten dates and dollar amounts. Then he looked up at Michael. "You have authorization for $2.4 million. That's your ceiling. I know because I know how firms like yours work. You reviewed this property for 90 minutes this morning. You ran comps. You set a max bid. You think you're the only one in the room who did homework." Michael's expression changed. He walked back to his seat without responding. The auctioneer called for the next bid. Michael said, $2, $3 million. Leonard said, $300. Michael said, $2, $4 million. Leonard said, $350. Michael sat very still. He did not bid again. The auctioneer called once, twice, 3 times. The gavel came down. "Sold to bidder 27 for $350. Leonard Moss stood slowly. He walked to the front table, signed the required documents, and wrote a check for $350. The county clerk stared at the check, then at Leonard, then processed the sale without comment. The entire transaction took 4 minutes. Michael Torrance left the building without speaking to anyone. Leonard Moss had not started with money. He had started with time. In 1982, when he bought his first 12 acres, he was working as a hired hand on a farm in Pettis County. He made $4.75 an hour. He worked 60-hour weeks. He lived in a trailer with no heat and saved $287 a month for 3 years. When he had $3,400, he found the cheapest land within 50 miles and bought it outright. It was bad land, rocky, poor drainage. No one else wanted it. Leonard didn't care. It was his. He worked that land evenings and weekends while still working full-time for other people. He cleared rocks. He graded the drainage himself with a borrowed tractor. In 2 years, he made the land productive enough to rent to a neighbor for $200 a year. He took that $200 and saved it. He kept working. He kept saving. In 1984, he bought 18 more acres. Same process. Clear it, grade it, make it work, rent it out, save the money, buy more. His wife Donna kept the books. She worked at the county assessor's office and knew how to read property records. She tracked every parcel that came up for sale, every tax delinquency, every estate auction. She highlighted the ones that touched Leonard's existing land. She calculated what they could afford. She never pushed him to borrow. She believed in the same thing he did. Own it outright or don't own it at all. Donna died in 2014, heart attack. She was 53 years old. Leonard found her in the kitchen, tax maps spread across the table, a highlighter still in her hand. She had been marking parcels for him to review. He buried her on the first 12 acres he ever bought, under a walnut tree they had planted together in 1983. After she died, Leonard kept the notebook she had started in 1982. It was a simple composition book, black and white marbled cover, 200 pages. Every land purchase they ever made was recorded inside. Date, seller, acreage, price, terms, closing location. Donna's handwriting filled the first 90 pages. Leonard's handwriting filled the rest. By 2026, the notebook contained 63 separate transactions spanning 44 years. The 160 acres in the center of his land, the Kraft property, had been highlighted in yellow on page 147 since 2019, the week Raymond Kraft died. Beside it, Donna had written in pencil 7 years earlier, "Wait for probate. This one matters." Leonard had waited. He knew the land would eventually go to auction. He knew acquisition firms would come. He knew they would bid high. But he also knew something they didn't. He had been watching Crestline Capital for 3 years. He had attended 4 of their auctions as an observer, sitting in the back, saying nothing, taking notes. He knew their pattern. Aggressive opening bid, incremental raises, hard ceiling based on comparable sales plus 15%. They never went above the ceiling. They didn't need to. They almost always won. But Leonard had also noticed something else. Crestline never prepared for a bidding war that didn't follow normal convention. They expected competition to bid near their range. They expected other buyers to make rational financial decisions. They did not expect someone to bid $50 on a $2 million property. They did not expect someone to force them to waste their entire bid range climbing past $100 increments. They did not expect patience. Leonard had patience. The night before the auction, Leonard sat at his kitchen table and opened the notebook to page 147. He read Donna's note again. Then he wrote below it in his own hand. April 22nd, 2026. Craft Estate Auction. 160 acres. Expected range, 1.8 million to 2.4 million. Strategy, force ceiling, then wait. He closed the notebook. He went to bed. He woke at 5 a.m., made coffee, and drove to the county courthouse. When the auction began, Leonard did exactly what he had written. He bid $50, then $100, then $150. Each time, Michael Torrance bid millions. Each time, Leonard bid fractionally higher. Leonard was not trying to win with those bids. He was trying to force Michael to exhaust his authorization ceiling as fast as possible. And it worked. By the time Michael hit $2.4 million, he had nowhere left to go. Leonard bid $350, the minimum legal increment above Michael's last bid, and won. The property transferred to Leonard Moss on May 3, 2026. Total cost? $350 plus $840 in closing fees and taxes. Total acreage now owned, 1,007 continuous acres across 3 counties, assembled over 44 years without a single mortgage, a single loan, or a single dollar of debt. 3 weeks after the auction, Leonard received a letter from Crestline Capital. It was polite, professional. It offered to purchase the 160 acres for $2.6 million, cash, 30-day close. Leonard read the letter once, folded it, and filed it in the notebook on page 148. He did not respond. On a Sunday morning in June, Leonard drove out to the walnut tree where Donna was buried. He parked the truck and walked the last 50 yards on foot. The grave was simple, a flat stone with her name, her dates, and one line. She kept the records. Leonard stood there for a long time, holding the notebook in both hands. "We got it," he said. The wind moved through the walnut branches. The land stretched out in every direction, unbroken now, whole. Leonard opened the notebook to page 148 and read the final entry he had written the night before. June 8, 2026. Craft property fully integrated. 1,007 acres total. No debt, no liens. Took 44 years. Donna was right. This one mattered. He closed the notebook carefully. He stood there a while longer, then walked back to the truck. At home, he returned the notebook to the top drawer of the desk in the kitchen, the same place Donna had kept it for 32 years. He closed the drawer. He poured a cup of coffee. He sat down at the table and looked out the window at the land. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Land doesn't care how fast you move. It cares that you move with patience, with precision, and with respect for what came before. Leonard understood that. Donna understood that. If you've made it this far, you understand that too. Next time, we're telling you about a woman named Caroline Driscoll, who sat across from a corporate attorney for 6 hours and never said a word. Until she did, and the whole case collapsed in 90 seconds. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Paste your script.